What's going on, boxing fans? Joe Williams with The Distance. I'm here to give my top 5 series for this week. This week is dealing with light heavyweights. Now, the history of the light heavyweight division began in 1903. Started by a boxing journalist out of Chicago by the name of Lou Houseman, who was also a manager and promoter. The first light heavyweight championship match took place in 1903 between Jack Root and Kid McCoy. Jack Root winning, becoming the first ever light heavyweight champion. And in his first title defense, he fought an opponent by the name of George Gardner. George Gardner was one of the most thrilling fighters to watch at the time, and George Gardner became the first ever undisputed light heavyweight champion. And after George Gardner, there were a long list of champions who actually lost their belts after the first title defense. And we have had many great light heavyweight champions some who went on to become heavyweight champions, and some great light heavyweights who never won a championship who ended up becoming great heavyweights. And the fighter I'm about to mention at the moment, my number 5, never won a light heavyweight championship, but he went on to win a heavyweight championship and is actually more known for what he's done at heavyweight than at light heavyweight. But at light heavyweight, he was never given a shot or a chance to fight or contend for a light heavyweight championship. And that fighter's name is Ezzard Charles. Ezzard Charles' career began in 1940, and at light heavyweight, he began if you look closely at it, he was pretty much a middleweight. This is before science and heavy training took place. He was actually a middleweight in his time. He was about 161 pounds, and he was fighting at light heavyweight. He fought one of the greatest light heavyweights of all time, and Archie Moore defeated him 3 times. Defeated another Hall of Famer by the name of Joey Maxim. Defeated another fighter who was ducked by the name of Charles Burley. And he beat all these guys with ease. But he was never given a shot at the light heavyweight championship. Was never in contention for some reason. Billy Conn would never fight him, who was the champion at that time. He did move up north to try to fight a heavyweight and contend for that championship and be the first fighter to simultaneously hold the light heavyweight and heavyweight championship, but it didn't happen. But he never fought Ezzard Charles. And Ezzard Charles, among many lists, is part of the greatest light heavyweight champions of all time. And we've had many fighters who've never won a championship in a division, but are among some of the best in the division, such as Sam Langford, who the boxing historian has mentioned in another video, never won a championship. But as far as the light heavyweight division goes, Ezzard Charles never won a light heavyweight title, but he went on to become a great heavyweight. And as a light heavyweight, Ezzard Charles had the style to beat anybody at that time. He stood up straight and stood in what we call the orthodox stance. In this era right now, in the current boxing era, he had a great left jab, had a powerful right hook, and he could just knock out just about anybody. And he was a tough fighter, and he was a hard-nosed fighter at that. He was basically if you look at today's light heavyweights, he's kind of small compared to them, like I mentioned earlier, because he was a middleweight, but he was knocking out bigger guys left and right. And this even goes on to the heavyweight era. If he's knocking out these heavyweights and he could barely weighs over 200 pounds, just imagine what a reign for him as a light heavyweight champion would be like. If he's knocking out men like Bob Satterfield, who outweighs him by maybe 60 or 70 pounds, knocking out people like Bob Satterfield and giving fighters like Rocky Marciano trouble at heavyweight. Just imagine the reign as a light heavyweight champion. I think at light heavyweight, Ezzard Charles could have actually beaten Joe Louis's record. I believe so. I believe he could have done that, but he was never given the opportunity at light heavyweight. But he defeated some great fighters. But there was one fighter that he had trouble with, and that was El Murray, who defeated him twice. But Charles did avenge that loss. So, but anyway, that was my number 5 this week. I don't really have much to say about Ezzard Charles at light heavyweight, but because he was ducked, he was never a champion at the weight class. But he, to me, is considered one of the greatest light heavyweights of all time, though he did not get a shot at the title. And but it's not being a champion that makes you a great fighter. You know, a belt doesn't mean anything. You know, just look at, why is Nikolai Valiev a champion, or John Ruiz? Why? Both of them are just titleless, and this is back in the era when there was one champion. So anyway, that's my thoughts on my number 5. I think that I have Ezzard Charles as number 5 because you think of what he could have done for the light heavyweight division, and on top of that, he's at light heavyweight was unstoppable and gave trouble to just about every opponent at light heavyweight. Was an awkward matchup, and actually should have been a long reign as a champion, but he was never given the opportunity. But he still remains one of the greatest light heavyweights of all time, despite never winning a championship belt. But anyway, that's my number 5 for this week, Ezzard Charles. Tune in tomorrow for my number 4. Thanks for watching.